Okay, so I have a long introduction that I'm going to skip because I'm kind of tired. Uh, a viewer very kindly suggested that I try scripting my responses to be more cogent and understandable with them because doing it live, I felt pressured to keep moving through the video a little bit faster, and they thought that I would be able to do better this way. So I'm going to try it. Who knows? Let's see what happens. I've recorded 10 hours of this video now. So, this is my suffering. I've watched this video like 12 times now. Why? Why do you do this to me? I jest. I love this. If this works, it's going to probably be a format. I might do both. I might do some live stuff and I might do some scripting stuff. I don't know. Um, Input on the script, input on that would be appreciated, and input on like the video itself would be nice. The last one had some audio bugs, which is why I'm recording this again. Hopefully they're all fixed. I did tests and they seem fixed. Also, no, this won't be my only content type, and I'm not just going to talk about Vexed either. I intend to do Aka at some point, but I also intend to do a series talking about my own stories and like criticizing them a little bit because I feel like that would help me kind of evolve my writing a little bit more than otherwise I could. And also, it proves that I'm being honest about this whole criticism thing because, like, I'm doing it to myself, which I noticed that none of these hate-dumb people do. But whatever the case, reading off a script is actually surprisingly difficult for some stupid, inane reason. And I don't know what it is, so expect me to slur my words a little bit, to stutter, to do my little because my brain just stops functioning at some points in time for no apparent reason. That's just going to be practice, and I hope that it gets better, and I'm sorry if it doesn't. For recording purposes, hey look, a slur. I've done that in every script reading, and it's not in the script. That's just me fucking up. Anyways, I'm going to be playing his videos unedited for both recording reasons and so you can see his entire argument chain that I'm going to be responding to. I don't want any allegations that I'm editing his stuff or misinterpreting his work, I guess. But with all that said, and hopefully under 5 minutes this time, let's watch the video, shall we? My first stop is going to be at 55 seconds in for people that want to try to skip to that in his video.
Hello, you filthy animals. My name is Vexed, and this will be my first proper Ruby discussion video. And what better way to start off this series than to talk about why Ruby Rose is the worst main character I have ever seen. Now, some of you may be thinking that that's just crazy talk, but I guarantee that if you watch this whole video, you will come to the realization that I am right. She is without question a bad written main character. Now, before we get started, let's debunk this whole notion that Ruby Rose is not the main character of this show. The red trailer came first. She's the leader of Team Ruby. Chapter 1 is named after her. She's the main fucking character. Okay? Now, Ruby Rose is a...
So, I fucked this up on my actual recording that I tried to upload to. This should say 52, not 55. I'm an idiot. Anyways, she's not... Maybe in some ways she's the team leader, but not really. For all Vexed wants to grandstand about her being introduced first in trailers and having the first episode title after her, these don't matter. Jean, for an easy example, in the same volume, has, I think, 2 episodes, the Jaundiced episodes, titled after him and set on him. Ruby having the first episode is completely irrelevant. That doesn't make her the main character. And as I said, this happens in Volume 1. So they didn't alter their writing formula going into Volume 2 to do this. This is how they're meant to be introducing these things. The point here is RWBY as a show is an ensemble. It's like the Avengers. RWBY, Weiss, Blake, and Yang are, to make this example, Captain America, Iron Man, because Weiss has no good matches here, and both of them are rich, so fuck it. Black Widow because ninjas, and the Hulk because Yang go smash. As with the Avengers, these are the first set of mainline characters. They are like the front cast, if you know what I mean. Consider the first fistful of episodes of RWBY to be like the original Avengers. And yes, I know Thor is ironically absent here because Nora's on the wrong team. That's not my problem. Um, that's a RWBY thing. That doesn't violate the example I'm making. Now, as everyone knows, though, the MCU is an ensemble franchise. It always has been. And anyone pretending that it isn't would be laughed out of the fucking critic place, I guess. I don't know what to call that, but you know what I mean. Juniper, in this example, could be considered as the second wave Avengers, if you get my gist. The Spider-Man, the War Machine, the Vision. These characters, Vision, Spider-Man, Scarlet Witch especially, these three, could never, ever be treated as background characters. Anyone that tried would just be disqualified by people that love these movies from talking about them because they clearly don't understand. If anyone tried to come in and argue that Tony Stark was the main character because he's introduced first in his first quote-unquote episode, or I can't remember. I can never remember if it's Iron Man or the Hulk that's first, but either way, the example is the same. Neither of these characters are the main character. All of these characters have their own standalone stories, their own opinions, their own goals, their own sort of presence on the screen. Just like Juniper does. As of even Volume 3, this is an ensemble cast. Even now, in Volume 7, it's still an ensemble cast. RWBY's a leading character, not the leading character. There's a distinction here. And it's one that I don't think Vexed understands. But on to the next point, which my script says to play until 3:20. I don't know if that's actually going to be correct. Let's find out.
Static one-note character with minimal character development, but that's been the case for the entirety of the show. I would argue that RWBY has gotten character development once throughout the first 3 volumes. That was in Volume 1, in the chapter titled The Badge and the Burden Part 2.
You're supposed to be a leader, and all you've been so far is a nuisance.
RWBY learned from Ozpin about what it means to be a great leader.
Being a team leader isn't just a title you carry into battle, but a badge you wear constantly.
And we see the fruits of that development later when she talks to John.
We have to put our teammates first and ourselves second.
From that point on, all the way to the end of Volume 3, the main character of the show does not change at all.
I wanted to pause the video here. This is unscripted to tell everyone to earmark this point. Just this scene.
And ourselves second.
From
this, I want you to bear this in mind throughout the rest of this because it's going to be important and I'm going to reference it multiple times.
From that point on, all the way to the end of Volume 3, the main character of the show does not change at all. She's a one-dimensional character who drops nothing but optimistic one-liners.
We won't let you down. Don't worry. Things will be better tomorrow. We've never backed down before, and we're not going to start now. It's gonna be tough, but I know we can do it. And if anyone tries something like this again, we'll be there to stop them.
But the reason why I didn't hate it so much back then was for two reasons. One being that Ruby was a badass. And the second reason being that Ruby was still very much naive. See, Ruby has a romanticized vision of being a huntress.
I mean, the police are alright, but huntsmen and huntresses are just so much more romantic and exciting and cool. You know?
We all had this romanticized vision of being a huntress in our heads.
It is possible that she really didn't know just how fucked up the world of Remit really was. But then the second half of Volume 3 happened. Ruby witnessed some fucked up shit. You would think that once her sister got her arm cut off, and after the death of her two friends, she would reflect on the life she chose. Silly me, I was very much excited to see how the character would progress. Because surely she would be a bit more dejected and would have a different outlook on the world and the profession of huntress, right? Nope.
Nope.
What happened to the character in Volume 4 and Volume 5 was just criminal. This is when a mediocre main character became the worst main character I've ever seen. Let's begin, shall we?
Okay, so this is a very common argument I hear from Vexed, Adele, their fans. It's that Ruby hasn't changed and thus hasn't developed. And that is not true for two reasons. First of all, mechanically, since characters don't have to become different characters to have developed. And second of all, in this instance, like with this character. Let's go back to the Avengers, because I made that analogy already and I want to keep it straight. Ruby is a lot like Captain America. Now, how much did Captain America change at his core? Like, the basics, fundamentals of his character, through to Infinity War and Endgame? The answer is he's not much at all. He begins and ends as the same sort of consummate soldier, even to enough of an extent that other villains and other characters pointed out multiple times. It's obvious to everyone. He fights for what he thinks is right and against what he thinks is wrong. He does, like Ruby, start to learn about the gray stuff that's going on, the spies, the terrorists, and all that craziness. And it does to him what it does to her. It ages them. Admittedly, the Avengers, I think, covers 15 years, so more happens. But they're still the same character at the end. They're still the same person at their core. It doesn't break them. He is like Ruby Rose, who, in her own words, has to keep moving on for the people she hasn't lost yet. Because again, and I told you all to bear this in mind, Vexed agrees. Ruby believes that hey look, more slurring. Ruby believes that being a team leader means putting her team ahead of herself every time, no matter what. Every time. This sort of behavior is in continuity with what he said was development for the character. So, what he has to demonstrate is that Ruby never shows any anxiety, fear, signs of trauma, such as, nightmares, things like worries that she's dragging people into things. And anyone that's seen these volumes knows that she does. But let's let Vexed get there, shall we? Let's let him go there.
Now, to show you why Ruby Rose is such a bad main character, I'm going to show you a good one. Let's take a look at little Avatar Aang from Avatar The Last Airbender.
I'm ready.
I'm sure you are. Aang is a beloved character because we see him grow. We see him go through different stages.
Why didn't you tell us you were the Avatar?
I'm not going to be playing the Avatar parts because, dear Christ.
Video, and to emphasize just how bad Ruby Rose is written, I will use just one episode of The Last Airbender, The Storm. The episode starts off with Aang having a nightmare. Katara notices that Aang is having some issues and Aang deflects. At this point, it is obvious that Aang's internal conflict will be at the center of this episode. I mean, the episode starts with the main character having a nightmare, for crying out loud. Now let's jump over to Volume 4, Chapter 2. Ruby Rose, the main character, has a nightmare.
So the next town is...
Wow. Let's play that again. What the hell was that?
I am so confused.
What a weird transition. Ruby has a nightmare. In the very next scene, she's walking down the path all smiles. Alright guys, it's happy-go-lucky Ruby here. Why are they doing that to her? Why? What is the point of Ruby having a nightmare where she hears Pierre's voice if you're just going to ignore it completely? She even has another nightmare later on, but that was only to service John's emotional scene. What was the point of traumatizing the main character if you're not going to show how that trauma is affecting her and how she overcomes it? What are they doing here? Let's jump back over to the storm. Aang eventually opens up to Katara. We get a real look inside the mind of the protagonist, and emotions run high.
I don't know what to say.
How could they do that?
Opens up to no one in Volume 4. In fact, Ruby is irrelevant for most of the volume. The only chapters where she had any importance at all is chapters 6 and 7. The volume that the fandom dubbed the recovery volume, the character who needed the most development and progression got none. Now, if your argument is that Ruby is actively avoiding all coping methods on purpose and that she's hiding behind fake emotion, there is nothing close to definitive. You are seeing what you want to see. There's nothing there. Now, before we take a look at the biggest middle finger to Ruby's development, let's jump back over to Aang.
Let's not. So, now we're talking about a different show with a different design, with different characters who are motivated differently, who act differently, and who have different levels of maturity. Aang is a lot younger than I think Ruby is, for example. Because, and this is another thing that I see constantly, people in the hatedom seem to have these, like, examples of how characters respond to things that they like, and that's fine. Their issue is they seem to think that this is the only correct way to respond to these, like, character moments. Aang and Ruby both have been through some shit. Both of them bottle it up, both of them repress it. They do so for different reasons. Namely, Aang is just a kid. He doesn't want to bother anyone. Ruby philosophically believes that bothering other people with this, when they have their own stuff to go through, is wrong. She's the leader, she has to bottle it up, she has to put on a brave face. That, in and of itself, means that these two scenes shouldn't play the same. They shouldn't look the same, they shouldn't be written the same, they shouldn't be expected to be the same. Now, I'm going to go back to my earlier point, where I pointed out that Ruby's philosophy means she's going to bottle stuff up. We see all of these signs leading up to things of her doing so and having negative reactions to it. The nightmares, for instance. But Vexed wants to tell us that there's no reason to believe she actually feels these things. We're just reading what we want on the screen. And I find that laughable. Because it's quite the opposite. We know Ruby's philosophy is to repress everything. And we know that she's having these, at this point in what he's covering, nightmares and stuff. So clearly she is feeling these things. But her character isn't going to just put it out there. She has a team to lead. So it doesn't. He's contradicting himself. He's wrong either on the front end or on the back end. Either he is wrong in what he called character development earlier, which I agree is character development, or he's wrong now. It has to be one of the two. Because if one of them is wrong, the other is right. And once again, I have to point out this is an ensemble show. Ruby is not irrelevant. She's part of a cast that's doing stuff. That's just how this show works. It's how it's worked since Volume 1. And again, people need to come to understand that. Now, let's move on to the pseudo. No, wait, I forgot. I looked right over a paragraph. My bad. The scene with Jean, the second nightmare, is meant to establish that he's feeling things too, but he's also bottling them up because he has the same philosophy of leadership that Ruby has, and now she knows he has it, so there's empathy there. She understands. She leaves because of the same understanding. If he's not going to talk, she's not going to cause any tension. Moving on.
Remember, this is still the same episode. Aang feels guilty about being gone for 100 years.
The world needed me and I wasn't there to help. Aang, the fisherman was right.
I'm not playing the Avatar stuff. I'm sorry, guys. I'm just not.
Aang isn't buying what Katara is selling just yet. He can think for himself, and there's no way a few words is going to change how he feels at the moment. Now it's Ruby's turn. Here we go.
I'm sorry. This is all my fault. I should have never dragged you guys into this.
Ruby feels guilty about Ranger and Crow being in danger because of her. Perhaps she'll open up. Let's see what happens.
You didn't drag us in. We wanted to come.
But you didn't know about Tyrion, about...
Ruby, despite everything you've lost, and everything you could still lose, you chose to come out here. You didn't drag us along. You gave us the courage to follow you.
You have got to be kidding me. Just when you think she might get some actual decent character development, John comes in to save the day. All it takes is a few words and Ruby is all smiles again. No, no, no. Ruby is so static, it's ridiculous. Is Ruby allowed to feel anything? She should have said, "No, you're wrong, John. This one is on me. It's my fault." Then later, she could come to the realization that John was right all along.
Katara, I think you were right before. I'm done dwelling on the past.
Or she could reach some other conclusion herself. This is not hard. They reduced Ruby Rose to such a nothing character by the time she writes a damn letter at the end of the volume, a letter that Yang never gets. I don't give a shit. You ignored the main character so much, I don't care about her tears. They mean nothing to me. Now,
Okay, so the irony here with how he cut things is at the front end of this, Ruby demonstrates the developments and anxieties and all of these emotions he wants. And at the end, just like Aang does, since he wants to keep making that point, he wants to keep comparing them. Jean, like Katara, comforts and reassures the protagonist in question, and in this case assures her that she didn't coerce anyone into helping. They wanted to because they're friends. Unlike Aang, who again is a different character, Ruby accepts this and moves on because her fellow team leader said it. That's what she'd been waiting for. She wanted a moment to talk to him because they open up to each other. That's how this works. This is not a static character. Ruby is demonstrating exactly the mental goings on that Vexed wants, but she's doing so in a manner consistent to her character, a character he doesn't seem to understand. Jean then, of course, does a very Jean thing, and they move on because he doesn't mind helping or the complications, and she trusts him when he says that. And those were Ruby's fears right there. It's been dealt with. She doesn't have the same regrets as Aang does in the storm because she didn't disappear for a fucking century. Why do I get the feeling he simply demands Ruby be Aang? Act as Aang does. That's what it seems like he's doing. He's demanding she act against what he has stated are her points of development and her character moments, and just asserting that she has to snap the way he does, and later realize that Jean Tara, I guess, was right, just like Aang does. He doesn't want Ruby, he wants Aang. He wants Avatar the Last Airbender, not Ruby. He's watching the wrong show. At the end, he argued as well, as you all heard, that he didn't care about her showing internal emotions in a quiet, private way like she would reasonably do based on her character. Again, he's directly taking the thing that he asked for and saying, no, that doesn't count, or he doesn't care. In this one, he didn't really have a good reason for it, so he just said he didn't care. He just asserted that he didn't care. He didn't give any reasons why, except for him ignoring everything that led up to it. It doesn't make any sense. Not only does he criticize her in contradiction of his earlier statements about development, with the whole put the team of whatever ahead of whatever you have going on mentality that she has, he also ignores her stating her feelings to Jean because she isn't Aang. She doesn't act like Aang. And then he ignores the next major display of emotion for no reason. He doesn't actually give a reason here. He just asserts that he doesn't care. See, the only reason I can think is because this contradicts him. That's it. If he were to try to write a character with these contradicting ideas about development and moments, and just riff on other moments that he sees from other shows like Avatar The Last Airbender, it would be a train wreck. The character would make no sense. Let's just move on. The next point is a minute out. So I'm going to chug a drink while we listen to this.
Now, apparently Miles and Carrie came to the realization that they fucked Ruby over in Volume 4. So they decided to give Ruby a scene where she opens up to Oscar.
We're all over again. How are you okay with any of this?
So that's what I choose to do. To keep moving forward.
This shit is so forced. First of all, why is Oscar yelling at Ruby? Has he lost his damn mind? Ruby should have bitch slapped him. This scene should have happened in Volume 4 with John. That actually would have made sense. Boom. Not hard. God damn it.
Okay. Things are bad. They're bad.
I think you get the picture at this point. Ruby's development is non-existent.
So, as usual, he won't show the conversation. It probably because it undermines like his entire point. But anyone can go watch the episode. I'm not going to play it like I did when I caught him in dishonestly editing in the Blake video because I got a copyright claim for that. I'm not playing that game. It's on YouTube, it's free, just go watch the conversation. He asks why Oscar snaps, which I don't know why this isn't about Oscar. This is supposed to be a Ruby video. Just like I don't know why Aang was mentioned. This is supposed to be a Ruby video, but whatever. Oscar snaps under the pressure of basically getting a death sentence at like 14. Like, we don't actually know, and I don't think Oscar's been told how the whole soul merging thing happens. And her slapping Oscar also wouldn't make any sense whatsoever. At all. In this character. This isn't how Ruby behaves. Also, Vexed, you don't get to tell the writers when they should have moments, as long as it's consistent with the characters, which they are. It's fine. Objectively. You're just wrong. And even if you did, she does have this moment with John. You just didn't like him doing what Katara tried to and actually having her accept it. Because you want her to be Aang, but with tits. That's it. That's the character you want. Go watch Avatar The Last Airbender. Not Ruby. Because that's what you want to watch. Now, either this is because you don't understand that multiple reactions can be natural, and thus correct character progression if in continuity with how they already established themselves, or you don't care and want the same story as Aang's. I've already made clear, I think that's the thing that's going on here. But either way, the crux of the issue is the same. Also, look, hey, he cut out part of her scene. Again. Because he won't play whole scenes. Again, consistent character development. Ruby has all of these emotions that the show is essentially now putting in big, bold text on the screen for you. She's looking at you out through the screen, telling you these things so that you know them for fact. And you can't deny them. But she bottles them up. She keeps moving forward because, and I hate to belabor the point, but I need to, as Vexed pointed out, that is part of the context of her character growth, so it only makes sense for her to act this way. At least on this point, to be clear, he's not being fair here. He's taking snippets out to criticize even when he contradicts his earlier acknowledgments of development. I think that's just an objective fact at this point in time. He's got 8 minutes in his video to change my mind or to change his approach. Let's see if he does.
Let's step away from Ruby's development for a minute and let's talk about how she's written in Volume 5. Ruby Rose spends most of Volume 5 sitting on her ass in that damn house doing nothing. What we discover about Miss Rose is that she is stupid. She's an idiot for the sake of the plot. Just like the rest of the characters in this damn show. Look no further than Chapter 4. Here, Ruby is training, trying to improve in hand-to-hand combat, and she socks the shit out of this 14-year-old kid. This is so pointless. The attack on Haven is a month away. It takes years and years of practice to even become decent in hand-to-hand combat. Why are they wasting our time with this shit? There is no way in hell she can improve enough in a month to beat her sister with one arm, let alone Tyrion. Besides, Ruby knows this is not her thing.
I already told you. I'm just not cut out for hand-to-hand.
Way too much is being made about her not being good in hand-to-hand combat.
You can only fight so long as you have Crescent Rose, but you're still lacking in hand-to-hand combat.
The writers have decided to make this whole what if she doesn't have Crescent Rose thing an issue. There is nothing wrong with having that be her weakness. What, you want her to be a badass scythe wielder, a silver-eyed warrior, and Bruce Lee? I mean, come on. Now.
Okay, everyone spent most of Volume 5 sitting in that damn house. Everyone. All of them. It figures that the one criticism Vexed has is one that everyone has, including Miles and Carrie. To the extent that they have acknowledged it was a problem, fixed it, and made jokes about it in the show. Part of me wants to be charitable and give him points for making a criticism that is like valid, but it's such a beige one that I'm not going to. Now, moving on to me explaining how plot works, I guess, to the critic who analyzes plot for a living with 20,000 subscribers. Ruby Rose does not know there is going to be an attack on Haven. She's not training for the attack on Haven. She's training to fill a skill gap. And at the same time help Oscar build himself up. When you write your plot, your characters do not know everything that's going on. They know what they learn about, they know what they're told about, and they know what they experience. Your characters have to act in this bubble that they have, this bubble of existence. Ruby doesn't know the price of tea in... I was going to say Mistral to make the price of tea in China quote, but she's in Mistral, so she doesn't know the price of tea in Atlas. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't. She's not going to act, or she shouldn't be expected to act on information she cannot have. And so the entire point about her not being able to train up in time to fight at Haven is pointless. That isn't how plot works, and Vexed probably knows it. The next issue is characters shouldn't knowingly leave weaknesses in their styles or equipment that they can fill. At least once it's been pointed out to them. Like once they're aware that it's a problem. Becoming proficient at hand-to-hand now for Ruby is a logical thing to do. It's screwed her, I think, 3 times. So training it to at least be decent is perfectly logical. Especially as Ozpin is the one that suggests she do it. You know, the teacher. While characters having weaknesses is acceptable and reasonable from a writing standpoint and a design standpoint, a poor character will make... or a poor writer, will make a character stupid so as not to fill a gap in their defenses and styles, to leave an opening open so they can easily use it later. That would be bad writing. Again, you showed it. She couldn't fend off a single white Fangoon without Crescent Rose. It would be stupid for her, Ozpin, or her friends not to see this and fill it if they can. This is good writing. The characters are acting intelligently. They're being smart. They're improving. Also, final point, proficient at hand-to-hand is not being like Bruce Lee. She doesn't want to be like Bruce Lee. She wants to not lose every fight because she can't fight without her scythe. This is... Moving on.
If you can remember, Ruby was very hopeful when she heard that Silver Eyes could be important in the fight against the enemy.
If I'm so special, then I can help.
Excuse me, but I have a question. Why is she actively ignoring her powers? Why doesn't she just ask Ozpin about her silver eyes? You know, the reason he let her in the school early to begin with?
You have silver eyes.
I think it was something about...
Silver eyes. That's an extremely rare trait.
So?
Why? Why? If Salem decided to use Grim like she did last time, that shit could come in handy. Salem cares more about it than Ruby herself.
If Ruby Rose has learned to harness her gift, then you must take care to protect yours.
The notion that Ruby's left cross will be more of a factor in saving Haven than her silver eyes is beyond asinine. Guys, I have got no choice but to believe the girl is an imbecile.
If it's okay to ask, what about the Fall Maiden? Does that mean Salem has the beacon relic?
Very astute, Miss Rose.
Is Ozpin trolling right now? There is nothing astute about it. We're in chapter 10. It's been a month since the events of chapter 3. A whole month. 30 days. It would have been astute for her to ask back then.
Well, I did have one more question.
No, my cane is not a relic.
I have no more questions.
You suck!
Really, Ruby? You have no more questions? You really are a dumb wench, aren't you?
You definitely painted a target on your back with what you did at Beacon. I told you having silver eyes is a rare trait.
You refuse to ask about your silver eyes? Fine. How about you ask about your mom? I mean, does anyone doubt that Ospin doesn't know what happened to her? He undoubtedly was the one that sent her on that mission. The one that led to her ultimate demise.
The girl with the silver eyes. Yes. We've dealt with their kind before.
She's not curious as to what happened? Come on, Ospin knows.
So, arguably, Ruby could be argued to have made a small mistake not asking with silver eyes. But again, not really. It wouldn't have mattered if she had. Ospin doesn't use them. And as I said earlier, Ruby wouldn't know that he, knows how they work and can train her. He's made no indication of it. She could very easily be assuming that if he did know about them and did want to train her, he would have done so at Beacon, and since he didn't, he wouldn't. This is at least an attempt at an actual criticism, though, so I'll give him a half point, I guess. Because, yeah, her asking Ospin about her mom, her not asking Ospin about her mom isn't a mistake either, as I don't think she knew her mom worked for him. I'm going to get into that later, though, because I think in a moment I'll be able to better approach this issue after playing a bit more to demonstrate the point I'm going to make. I do have to say, before moving forward, calling Ruby a dumb wench, I think twice, maybe 3 times at this point. I think he does so 3 times in the video. I think he's done so twice now. Is disgusting. Legitimately disgusting. What not sexist calls women wenches in the modern day? Just why? And he's done it multiple times, is my point. So, this is just a thing for him. Is it a joke? For now, let's just assume it's a joke, because at the time of writing this, I assumed it was a joke. There I go being charitable again in my script. Someone start the damn countdown on it biting me in the ass. Spoiler alert for future me who is reading the script and knows. The countdown is 20 seconds. Just putting that out there.
Ruby, you are worthless.
There is no beating Salem.
You're wrong. We've done things that most people would call impossible.
Like what, Ruby? Like what?
And I know...
Like freezing a dragon in solid stone.
The only reason we were able to do it is because we didn't do it alone.
Please, someone shoot her.
With us.
See? I'm happy she got shot. That should never be the case with the main character. It's the writer's fault, I swear.
So, this entire thing was cringy. First of all, as I pointed out, he's wrong. Ruby fucking froze a dragon in solid stone with the power of her eyes. A lot of people would call that impossible. They've been traveling with it. They're now with an immortal reincarnating wizard man inside of a small farm boy. People would call that impossible. Weiss smuggled herself out of the most secure kingdom on the planet. And most people, I guarantee, would call that impossible. Yang found her bandit mother randomly out in the world. She tracked her down. And most people would say that was impossible too. They've done impossible things. Now, at the end there, I have to ask, is this criticism? He's just enjoying Ruby getting beaten down at this point. That's not criticism. I genuinely think just with this and the repeated dumb wench argument, He's not a critic here. He's not being one. He's letting the veil slip. He's a basher, not a critic. Playing this is why I stopped the script earlier, to let you all see what came next. He contradicts his own points to bash on Ruby's character growth multiple times. He ignores scenes that give him what he asks for because it undermines him. He ignores the core of her character to criticize her actions. He ignores what she could possibly know, such as that Haven will come under attack, or that Ozpin is directly tied somehow to her mom's death, which I think Crow in Volume 7 implies he wasn't, that she did something on her own. And that makes it even more ironic that he'd be criticizing this, because his assumption would be wrong. I even went to watch the episode again, where at the end of Volume 3, where Crow tells her about her eyes, and he does not imply or state Ozpin knew about them there, or that her mother worked with him. Then I went to watch Volume 4, Chapters 7 and 8, to see if he mentions it in there either, because these were examples he gave. Like, he showed video snippets from them. Episode 7 was irrelevant, it turned out, but I watched both the last 2 episodes in full because, I love Ruby. Fuck me. That's right. I paused this video with 3 minutes left to spend about an hour just to fact check it. Yeah. I watched 3 times as much as of video stuff as his video just to fact check it. Sue me, I love Ruby. Now, in Volume 4, Chapter 8, we know Crow tells them about the maidens off-screen. They come back and they're talking about it. They ask questions about how the maidens work. I'm not going to make assumptions beyond that, because that is what's implied to be happening in the scene. Vexed is free to. Regardless, he does not seem to explain in the scene that Ozpin knew about Silver Eye Warriors to that extent, or that her mother worked with him due to that. So Ruby has no reason to ask Ozpin about them. She just doesn't. This is my earlier points actually, of characters will act in accordance to what they know, or how they feel, and how they process how they feel and what they know. And he is criticizing this character based on things that he's making up and purposeful misunderstandings of her. Now let's move on to the next little snippet. It's 2 minutes more. Let's go.
Why are you doing this?
Why is she trying to have conversations with someone trying to shoot her in the face? And what is up with that blocking animation, man? Oh my gosh. Ruby isn't even a badass anymore. She used to be cool, at least. Really? Really? For whatever reason, Miles and Carrie don't want to touch this subject right now. The problem is, it doesn't make any sense within the actual story. Ruby Rose and the entire show is suffering because of it.
Why would you do something like that? I mean, what is wrong with you? You okay?
No. I'm angry.
Ruby finally gets angry. And they cut away. Great.
Uh-oh. What are you gonna do now?
Oh, you see, Vexed? She did need that training she got back in Chapter 4. Because had she not have gotten it, she wouldn't have been able to hit Mercury without her scythe. How could I have been so wrong? Wait, why did she put her scythe away? She was using it to fight Mercury.
Whatever you're doing, don't stop.
Not even gonna take a chance.
Is it. That she is the worst main character. I have any more of this. She is the worst. She is the worst main character I have ever seen. She might even.
Okay. From the top. Ruby is trying to talk to Emerald because Ruby just learned about Salem and everything else going on. She doesn't know if Emerald knows. They were friends, in Ruby's eyes at least. And she doesn't know how much of that was ruse. She doesn't know if maybe they were actually friends, but then, like, job came calling kind of thing. So, yeah. So she tries. This is a common trope. This is a common thing in, like, superhero stuff. Especially anime, which Ruby draws from heavily. She does this because she's a good person who wants to see the best in people. Am I? Would I do this? No. Do I know people who would act in this way? Yeah. Ruby is different from you and I, Vexed. She's not, however, unreal or a bad character for that. He then goes on to bitch about the Silver Eyes again. Eyes which ironically get covered at decent length in the next volume. Almost like the hints and crumbs leading up to Maria's introduction, her educating Ruby at the eyes, and then the organic like information for them. I don't know. Someone that has and uses had and uses them. This sentence is going to kill me. It's almost like all of this comes better from someone that has them or had them and used them instead of people that don't and can't. Further, we're told that the eyes only work in the presence of Grimm, so Ozpin couldn't have trained her even if he did know. She needed Grimm nearby. Where it's revealed that Cinder has a Grimm arm. She has a parasite. That's why the eyes can work against her. That's why they worked against her in the first place. Once more, a thing not happening how you desire is not criticism. Just like Ruby not acting like Aang wasn't criticism earlier. Then he gaslights about Ruby knowing just enough hand-to-hand to rearm after Mercury disarms her. Something that Mercury's in-character arrogance allows. Was it poorly animated? Yeah, a bit. And everyone knows Volume 5 wasn't grand at its choreography or animation. Again, he has a valid criticism here, but it is not of the writing or Ruby's character, which is the subject of the video, nor is it unique. It's a beige one made by everyone that watched Ruby, and even Kruby. His criticisms begin and end at the ones Kruby was able to see themselves. Animation is not a criticism of Ruby, either the character or the show, when it comes to writing. And that he gaslights about this point is irrelevant, except in pointing out that he thinks his audience is stupid enough to fall for it. On its own, but especially with my earlier explanations, that scene with Mercury justifies her training in basic hand-to-hand. It just does. Now, he said he's done, so I'm gonna believe him. I'm not gonna play the next fucking 40 seconds of what I assume are going to be.
Have you ever met someone and thought to yourself, they are the personification of this word?
Well,
Yeah, he's just memeing a little bit. Hopefully scripting helped me make more cogent points. I know I slurred and fucked up my words like a dozen times, and it probably quadrupled, or at this time, like, octupled maybe even, the prep time to get this up and out. But fuck it, if it works, it works. Regardless, what is my opinion at the end of the video, of Vexed and his points? Vexed is a self-contradicting mess who seems more interested in bashing Ruby, both character and show, than making consistent or cogent criticisms. He violates his own internal integrity of criticism by first noting things that he considers character development. Again, I think it is, but that is largely irrelevant. But then he later complains about that development remaining and dictating how she acts. He also delights in Ruby being hurt, and further refers to her as a dumb wench, I think 3 times. And again, I reject any, like, oh, it's just a joke. He did it multiple times. This is not a joke. He also criticizes her for mistakes she couldn't have known were mistakes, such as not asking Osmond about things that she doesn't think or know that he knows about, or training for a thing when she can't prepare for an attack that she doesn't know is coming. Both of these things right here show a violation of how storytelling goes. The earlier points show a violation of how character design and development goes. Because in all of these, he complains about Ruby not acting on information she does not have, or not acting on character development she does not have, or acting against character development she does have. She doesn't know there will be an attack on Haven when she goes there, and thus isn't preparing. And by evidence, she doesn't know for sure Osmond knows any of the stuff that he bitches that she doesn't ask about. Further, she's processing a lot of stuff, and while maybe she would suspect that this is a pertinent question, and Oz would know, I know that the fandom had a lot of theories going on about it. She's a bit busy accepting that dead people can possess bodies, magical relics do in fact exist, and getting hit by fireballs, to properly process everything together and then go ask. Further, a point I'm adding much later, characters make mistakes. A good, well-written character makes mistakes. They have to. It's part of being a person. They can be big or small. They can forget to pack something or say something wrong and start a fight, or have differing opinions like Iron Man and Captain America in Civil War. Or they could knock a bucket into a well and alert the enemy to their presence, getting many people killed, splitting up the party, and generally just causing a big problem. Making mistakes is not a problem in character building, and if he watched Avatar: The Last Airbender, as he implied he did earlier, he would know that, since the show is premised on Aang making a mistake and running away. It's premised on that. Let's continue this point for a second. Let's go back to the Avengers again. Banner makes mistakes in his experiments, some of which are like not catching the sabotage that I think happened, and becomes the Hulk. Tony makes mistakes, for instance, not really caring what's going on with his business, and that ends up with him becoming Iron Man. Captain America does the same thing. Black Widow multiple times states at the screen that she made mistakes. Pointing out a character's making a mistake is not a criticism of the character, unless it violates their previous character building and their ideas and their beliefs. I hate to say it, but Vex neither seems to know what he is talking about with these, or is honestly criticizing them at all. He doesn't seem interested in either, for all of the various reasons that I've gone over. So I'm done with Vexed for now. I hope you all liked the script efforts. I look forward to whatever input I get. Please drop a like, drop a comment to give me your input. If you're polite and not a dick about it, it will get used. And maybe subscribe to see what comes next. Namely, me bitching at myself for stupid story mistakes I made. Have a good one and stay safe out there. My voice is dying. I don't know if you can tell. Have a good night.